All right. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Game and Compute. On this podcast, we talk about careers and jobs, money, somewhat talk about education, side hustles, finance. Today, I would like to talk about slightly more esoteric topic related to my ego when it comes to either goals or kind of like my professional goals. So right now at my job, we are having an insurance review. I don't know if it's an audit. We don't know what to expect. They kind of mentioned to us in the month of April to, make sure that we're dotting our I's, crossing our T's, because there's going to be some form of an inspection of a sort sometime eventually. And then a couple days ago, let's say Tuesday, before the end of August, they announced to us that they're going to be reviewing our work records through the month of August 2022. So, no warning. They tell us at the end of the month so that we, don't really have any time to really make any kind of adjusting. They didn't really tell us what to expect. The only kind of feedback we've been getting from our management, initially they sent an email in April of, you guys should be fine, things are good, you guys are all doing good work. And then, we got another message about like reviewing the content and trainings related to fraud and all that kind of thing, reviewing the documentation processes and all that kind of stuff. And they mentioned phone records, that they're going to be, reviewing phone records. We don't know what they're looking for. They have to have some form of a process of verifying, what we do, because we're remote work. And so they're trying to kind of figure out what's going on here. So, I don't know if they found something that they were like, ooh, like that's a little, not okay, or if they're just doing this as like a protocol. Now, one thing I've noticed about my job is that, they tend to have us doing things and working on things, and, we kind of have to make our own processes. We kind of tend to have to create our own methods, our own protocols, internally and personally, just to kind of make some kind of a, strategy of how we're going to get our goals done. Like, we have basically we have 2 types of assessments that need to be updated every 6 months from the time a person enrolls. So those are staggered. We have contact we need to make at least once a month. If we can't contact our actual clients, we need to be coordinating with providers. But initially we need 1 to 2 contacts per month. And, there's different kind of processes if it's like hospital follow-up and whatnot. And they don't really train us how to do this stuff. They just say, do it. And then they're like, okay, we've noticed this kind of thing. This is what our internal team says. We noticed this kind of thing going on. So from now on, we're going to do it like this. Then maybe weeks to months later, the insurance rolls out a training that's like, okay, this is how you should be doing all this stuff. And so, then at that point, it's like the job doesn't have time to go back and do our own internal training. Meanwhile, people start work, different staff are like coming in because the teams are growing. So they're hiring. So there's people starting work at different times of the year. And then there are us people who have been there. I've been there since the very start. I was the first person on my team hired, and I've been there since the end of May 2020. My team started in 2020. We started before the training manuals were even fully developed for us to really even read them. And we hadn't been trained on some of the stuff where they were telling us how to do it. We had to learn how to use the records on our own. Like, it's just all this kind of stuff, right? So that's kind of how my job's going lately. And the one of my supervisors recently, but checked in with us. Yesterday was a meeting that we usually had scheduled, and the supervisor yesterday had scheduled earlier that week to start having meetings with us on that Thursday. So we got 30 minutes to talk over video chat, and a lot of the questions were about where do you see yourself in this company in the next 5 years, or professionally, what are your professional goals. Those were the questions that I think were the right questions to ask and kind of stuck out to me. And they, were talking also about the upcoming processes of I know this stuff is boring, I'm sorry, but like it even bores me talking about it. I just started my 3-day weekend. I'm not really trying to think about work, but I like to process this stuff out so that I'm not spending my whole freaking weekend thinking about it. So basically, we're all kind of worried about this review and for the August services. Also, we, the only thing that the supervisor told me more recently Thursday was, don't worry, you do good work, and they don't know what to expect, but if the insurance asks for all the detailed records, they're going to send them. If the insurance does not ask for all the detailed records, then they're just going to give them whatever they ask for. So they don't know what to expect either. So who knows when we're going to find out. And we were hoping that this Thursday meeting that we just had with that supervisor was going to be the results of what they found in August. But I talked to most of my team, and so I was like messaging people like, hey, because I know some people had their meetings at like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and mine wasn't until 2:30 p.m. So I was like trying to get like some details, like, hey, what did you guys talk about? Like, what are the topics? Like, how'd your meeting go? Kind of like, not to be nosy, but just like, I'm curious, I'm nervous, I'm anxious, like, what's up, And so once I found out it's just a general check-in about like how we're doing and all of our opinions about things, I was like, so we're not even through the process yet. The supervisor wants to check in with us more often, which I appreciate and respect. I got to talk about kind of my little bit of frustrations with something that's not even in their control, right? But it's kind of like two things that mostly I noticed kind of really drain my own energy that I have barely come into awareness about is, the training process and all the tedious, like the emails, the team's messages of like, okay, do this, or oh, can you do this now, or oh, can you do that now? And so I'm usually throwing it onto my calendar, and then I kind of mention like, I do have this, I kind of push things back, because they spring stuff on us, but there's no real deadline. Like, unless they're like, can you please do this today? Can you please prioritize this as like the next thing you have to do? I'm usually just going to push it back, not too far, but push it back until I actually have both time and energy to do it. And then I also noticed that my energy kind of fluctuates a lot lately because, I'm pretty overwhelmed. I've been mentioning this time and time again. I'm pretty overwhelmed. I'm pretty burned out. But I can't really see myself, applying for something different, which would cause me to have to move and then having to move again when I'm just barely settled in. I like that it's a job that I started from the ground floor before there were even a lot of policies in place. But now we're like 2 years into this job and we're on our second management team now. And it's not really chaotic because of anything I see from what we're doing. It just seems that there's some kind of process between the insurance and kind of how they treat each branch, each company. So yeah, they wait too long to train us. And it kind of screws the workflow because, like I mentioned, we do have things we have to do. And then our clients can just call us, text us, email us whenever they need us. Meanwhile, we're trying to reach out to them, and sometimes it's hard to really schedule. Another thing that I have a challenge with is really the multitasking, because all this is multitasking, I can have maybe before 2 p.m., say if I schedule a 9 o'clock client, a 10 o'clock client, 11, 12, and a 2 o'clock client, right? One every hour with a buffer at the end and the beginning, and a lunch, maybe like hour in the middle, like just midday, like let's not, we can schedule all these people and I can call them all and they might all not answer. Then they might all call me back around 2 p.m. Meanwhile, during every time that I have an hour session planned, I will try to do other work, either stuff that, I've been putting off, pushing on my calendar until a later date, or something that I either pushing off to a later date or something that I know that I still need to do. Because like I said, we do have a to-do list. It's not really a very large to-do list, but it starts adding up. So basically, I've created my own system that, I've requested most clients, like, please don't contact me after 2 p.m. So what I usually try to do is power through all of my, contacting of clients the first, week of the month. So I try to give myself the first 5 business days to attempt to contact everybody. That's 43 people. So it's not like every single day I'm contacting every person, but chunks of people every day. Try to voicemail, text, whatever it takes, and ask them their preferred time of check-in. Some of them don't really want to check in by phone, and so they'll text their updated information as their preference and use that as their monthly check-in. Now, the company wants us to call people. The clients directly state, please don't call me, or they say that not even with their words, but with their lack of engagement or blocking our calls and all that kind of stuff. So I get into this toss-up between, following the demands of the insurance, of making these phone calls and doing the calls because they consider that the highest quality of work, to remain remote. And then you get the pushback from the clients of, okay, well, if you keep calling me, then I'm basically just going to block you or tell my family members to tell you that I'm not home. And then you never get in touch with them. And then, it becomes a hassle for them, and then it becomes a hassle for us. So that's another challenge. And so, I can go on and on and on, but when the supervisor was asking me about my goals, my professional goals, for the job and in general, where I see myself. I don't see myself doing this as it is for the amount of time that I'm doing it. Right now, this job is a means to an end for me. It's steady work, it's stable income, it's benefits, it's remote work. I'm not using too many resources other than my emotions and just the drain that I experience. I'm not using too much resources as gas or like being tempted to like eat food out or stuff like that. I'm not using any of that kind of resources. I'm only really, at home working, and there's food in the house. So I'm saving a lot of money. I'm not really tempted to do too much buying other than like Instacart, Uber Eats, that kind of stuff. And I live across the street from one fast food place with a drive-through and a actual grocery store and a Starbucks and one big plaza. So if I really needed to, I could technically order in advance and go over or walk over, get my stuff or whatever, to save money and not really have to use like delivery and stuff. Like, I take my breaks, I take showers on my breaks. I'll do laundry during my breaks. I'll do cleaning in the house during the breaks. Some little bit of cooking and food prep during the breaks. Not all in one day, but like staggered throughout the week. There's certain days that I'll just like pop in certain stuff that I need to do. So it takes the pressure off of having to do like chores and errands and stuff like that when I'm not working. So those are like advantages for sure. But, I start, thinking about my, goals. My goals are more so connected to the projects that I work on. I'd really like for them to be, the way that I could really kind of set myself up for my future. There's definitely stuff in the way of that. There's definitely the struggle of, being drained, emotionally, intellectually. It's like after you work at a job like that, without really being able to predict your schedule and with things just happening here and there all the time, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, I've mentioned before, if my energy's good, then it's fine if it's a busy day, but if my energy's not good, it's rough if it's a busy day, and vice versa. If my energy is, like, it just kind of depends. If it's a slow day and then my energy's good, it's like, okay. Or if it's a slow day and my energy's not too good, then it's like, okay, but usually, I can't predict if it's going to be a fast or a slow day, so I'm just kind of running all over the place, some days when I really don't have the energy to do so. Today, I was incredibly unfocused. I had a lot of stuff on my mind that I just kind of needed to process, and so I wrote down some notes. This is one of the things, when thinking about my goals, like after that conversation with the supervisor yesterday, I did start thinking more about my goals and how I had responded to those questions. I said like 2 or 3 things, like mainly, I didn't say it in so many words, but I kind of alluded to, it's really hard for me to really actually state what my specific goals are, because those have changed, because, the financial situation with the economy and everything being so up in the air, it's kind of hard for me to really plan. But really, one of my major goals really is just to have a place that is a property of my own. That would be one goal that I have, as well as, having the projects that I work on become an actual, reality, as far as like a viable source of income. and for it to be predictable income, where I can like create strategies and scale up. So I basically mentioned to the supervisor, not in all those words, I basically said regarding that, about my projects being like my main focus, that, you know, I'm kind of just at this job from 8 to 4, you know, putting in the work, but, you know, I still put in work after this job, you know, trying to, you know, kind of make more of a means for myself. But really, my 8 to 4 gets in the way of my, you know, projects. And so I can't be as consistent as I'd like because my energy is not always there. You guys hear it, you know, sometimes I'm just like, just like super foggy, can't really think straight. Sometimes I'm literally just like everywhere. Like I mentioned, I took some PTO and had to take some days off because I got into this caffeine cycle that just was not working for me. You know, I was lacking sleep. Like I did sleep, but I was like lacking sleep. I wasn't getting like quality sleep for multiple days. You know, I'd be like at work just like staring and just like daydreaming. And usually when that happens, it's because I've got a lot on my mind that I haven't had time to process, and, you know, it's hard for me to work when I can't process, when I'm not processing what's going on inside of me. I'm just like, you know, trying to work, and then there's another part of me that's like, dude, like, you know, there's all this stuff pending. It's almost like, you know, if you have slow Wi-Fi and then you're trying to like download something, and then the more things you try to download, you know, the more stuff is, you know, slow. Like it helps to download one at a time, or it just helps to have generally faster Wi-Fi, right? So, you know, it's like one or the other. Just do one at a time or have faster Wi-Fi, you know. One of my friends told me, you know, not to really, you know, look at my mind and mental state and emotional state like compared to like machinery and technology. That is like a model that we learn in like cognitive psychology often, is that model that's like comparing us to like hard drives and memory and like space and, you know, just like overtaxing systems and all this kind of stuff. It kind of takes away from like the human experience and the complexity of things, because we're not machines. But so, you know, all that is kind of the massive background of stuff that I'm kind of dealing with over the past couple days. Mind you, I did take PTO Monday. I mean, it started last Friday afternoon and then took Monday fully off, and then half of the beginning of Tuesday. And so I didn't even work a full week this week, and I'm already feeling, you know, the drag again. You know, it's like I had, you know, 1.5 good days, and then all of a sudden, you know, like I feel super thrown off with the month ending and a new month starting right in the middle of a week, and then having some days off, and then like all this other stuff. Like it's just really complex for me. To where my ego comes into all of this, you know, is I notice that I have, you know, patterns that get in my way. So there are basically 2 patterns that I've noticed in my life that I definitely struggle with. There's that, you know, failure to execute, as far as like with my projects or even with like work and things like that. It does come up. And then there's kind of the overstressing, you know, to my, you know, like past my limits, and not taking the breaks I need, and not, you know, taking the care of myself that I need to take. So being functional is very complex when you have all these things, all these moving pieces. So these patterns kind of get in the way, right? Failure to execute for myself, that looks like, even for the podcast related stuff, you know, it's like I'll totally have like a series that I'll be like, okay, I'm like, recording these, and I'll stagger them so it's not always like back to back to back the same type of topic, but I'll have like a series that I'm thinking on, or like certain ideas that I'm thinking on, and I'll have everything going, and either I'm like working on like writing some stuff and then like posting it to either sell or give away, and then like I might not fully edit it, so then I don't publish it, but I'll have it all written. It'll be like a lot of things that I'll write, and then I'll just leave it. Or I have like this other the other failure to execute is kind of like something as simple as paying for ads and marketing. It's like I'll have a whole campaign going and a whole plan and strategy going, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, like like get the ads going, get the marketing done, get the traffic to this. I just slack and there's not really a lot of execution. There's a lot of building, there's a lot of creation, there's a lot of content. There's just not a lot of taking the steps to get to the spaces that I can fully test and analyze. Like, I think I'm past the stage of analyzing, just content for content's sake, as far as like niches are concerned and content topics are concerned. I'm kind of past that stage. I have plenty of data, like over 2 years worth of data to pull from, and so I don't know why it would take me so long, but I can easily blame that I have 40-hour work week. I mean, that's definitely true. I do find myself recording on breaks, recording after work, recording before work. I've noticed, the thing that's helping me to get up and get going with work the easiest is to record a podcast episode in the morning before work. And I just wake up and I'm like, all right, I got at least like 15 to 20 minutes, and this is a topic I want to record on. And I can just wake up, start logging on to work, and then start recording. I mean, this is not at all part of my job. I mean, there is a lot of information I pull from my job because, I work in a professional field where, there is a lot of resource information. So anytime I can like give resources where I see that people could potentially use that to kind of get what they're looking for, I basically try to do that. And then also, the overstressing to my limits. I used to do that when I was younger. I used to do that when I used to do that, for sure in grad school, for sure in college. And now I do it at work. It's like I push and push and push, even though my body and my mind is like, stop, slow down. You're foggy because you got other stuff going on right now, that you need your like emotional and mental kind of like space to kind of just like deal with this stuff. But I'm just like, nah, put that on the back burner. Same thing for, learning my limits. I know what my limits look like. I can feel it, like physically. It's a feeling that I sense, and I ignore that too. I ignore my body, I ignore my mind, I ignore my emotions, and I'm just like, fuck this, let's go, and I'll be dragging, and then that kind of leads to making other mistakes where it's like, okay, well, I'll just drink more coffee, and then I won't sleep, or I'll be super irritated, or I'll just be like just not in the mood for people. And then people, will be trying to talk to me. I've got some people that, a friend of mine that I talk to, he lives over by the beach, and, we talk a lot, and, on a pretty regular basis about really complex concepts. And it's like, I even get annoyed hearing from him. I'm just like, that's just one more thing that I have to hear his problems or have to hear his opinions. And it's like, we're literally like processing things together and like bouncing ideas off of each other, and it's part of like my own internal work, and I'm literally just like shutting it off, ignoring it. I'll be honest, there are times that I've literally blocked him just because I just like couldn't even deal. I couldn't even deal with it. I was feeling kind of like just overwhelmed by every single thing. So whenever I would see his messages, and it was always about like jealousy and greed and control and blah blah blah, like those terms were always coming up over and over, and I was like, oh my god, like what's he talking about? I don't want to listen to all this nonsense, all this BS. Like I don't really care. So those are just two of the things that I've noticed. I'm really good, starting a part of a process, even at work. I can message and contact 44 of my clients all at once, not 43, like not all at once, but like, even if it's just a text message, just send like a text message to all the ones who get texting and just be like, hey, it's a new month. Like, let's check in, like what works for you. Like, let me know what's going on. Let's talk about your goals. I'll need to give you a call from now on, at least once a month. And we'll just tell me what you want to talk about. Let me know what times kind of work best for you, and we'll go from there. There have been multiple months where I just started out the month and had everybody contacted, within a couple days. We're already 2 days into a new month, and I've basically done like mostly research and taking incoming calls. I haven't really branched out specifically to that many people, but I've mostly taken incoming calls. Researched the stuff I need to research, done meetings, paperwork, responding to our own staff, trying to like keep people encouraged and be understanding when people are like, hey, I got this going on. And I'll be like, oh man, like I understand, and like I'll actually spend time sitting there online, like chatting with my coworkers about stuff. And then meanwhile it's like I've got all this other stuff going on. I've got clients that need to be contacted, all this other stuff. But, I was like, maybe I can put some of this stuff on hold for a few days. I'm hoping that by Tuesday I'm feeling better so that I can at least plow through this stuff, because this is only the first phase of the month, is get all the contacts attempted. Then we, usually my next phase is connect to all the providers of the people who never answered for even scheduling. Then my next phase is try to call all the people who I only had provider contacts with. And then my next phase is, all the other stuff that people need me to get done for them that they mentioned they're struggling with for that month. Instead of doing it as I call them, I try to do that with the remainder of the month, to see how far we get on those goals. And so a lot of time spent contacting, a lot of time spent answering, responding to calls, and then a whole lot of time spent, connecting people to their needs, or looking for connections to help people. It's an easy job. I tell myself it's an easy job, and on the surface it seems easy, but it's kind of developing into kind of a problem. So that's kind of where I see my goals, is trying to phase myself out of this job. But it's not going to be easy if I'm not executing on things, and it's not going to be easy if I keep overstressing myself past my limits. So that's kind of some of what's been on my mind at work today. Just some of it. That's the most immediate stuff that was kind of getting in the way. It was just like, I have these topics that I want to, get into, but like I got to do this job, So it's kind of hard to, it's really kind of hard to, focus. I really need to stay focused. I really need to stay, engaged with this process. I'm not the only one going through this process that I know. So it's kind of nice to talk to like-minded, creatives, so that we can kind of, encourage one another, you know. There's some people I've really been enjoying reconnecting with. It's really been amazing. I've definitely learned a whole lot about myself while I was in San Diego. Just kind of the processes I go through with, like, not really, like, kind of putting up with too much, I think. Not really directly addressing things that like, when they bother me, I kind of wait a little bit too long till it's like, now it's a problem. Now it bothers me in a problematic way. I'm losing sleep. My mental health is affected versus being like, nip things in the bud early. Just a lot of things like that where it's just like, not really too helpful for myself. But I'm learning. I'm definitely doing the work to try to get through a lot of things. But I think too that does create a lot of drain too. Like, it's not easy to just be sitting here talking about this kind of stuff, or writing about this kind of stuff, or thinking about this kind of stuff. I'd rather be playing video games and watching movies, in all honesty. Not really. Like, I get nothing really out of that. But sometimes it's like I'm definitely totally drained. So trying to do all this, drains me. But also it gives me energy once I'm through doing it. It's almost like a workout, All of this for me really is like a form of exercise. It's like you go into the gym and you get into work, and you feel it. You feel that it's intense. You feel that, your body's kind of like, okay, like, I'm responding to the fact that you're straining me. And then, eventually you get able to kind of find a method to kind of deal with it, with your breathing, or just kind of like just focusing on the reps, or focusing on the music, or whatever it may be, focusing on your form. And that's kind of how it is for me with processing this kind of stuff. It's like, it's tiring, but it's worth it. It's a lot of drain, like, almost everything these days is a drain, but I've got a lot that I haven't really been like fully managing for such a long time, that it's just kind of added up. And I try not to just be on here just complaining and venting and moaning about problems in my life, but I really hope this is a helpful way of explaining kind of how I address problems. Like, you guys can kind of see my process of like, all right, there's definitely some holes and gaps in this that could be filled in a little bit better. I could definitely take a more active role on some things. And I do pay kind of a little bit of attention, even when I was talking about the two types of things where I have like a failure to execute. I did have that big pause, trying to mention the second one. Just my brain just totally blanked. And there's something there, like I mentioned before, like what I learned from like ISTDP, there's kind of something to that. It's kind of like a brain's defense of like, I literally was thinking about this all day. Not all day, but for like a portion of today. And I literally wrote down these notes. And I literally mentioned a couple times at the intro what I was mentioning, about like failure to execute. And then right when I start talking about the details of it, I couldn't even remember what I was saying. So, it's like my mind went somewhere. I don't know where it went, because I was in the middle of trying to finish my sentence. But there's definitely something to it. It's definitely deeper than just like I just didn't press send, and I've definitely had experience with failing with things in my life, and that doesn't feel good, and it's not fun, and I don't like it. And I would think that wouldn't be as it wouldn't have left so much of an impression on me, whether it's from like grad school or like certain classes during grad school, or just certain experiences, maybe with some relationships and all kinds of stuff. Like, I don't, it's gonna happen. Not everything lasts forever, and not everything works out the way that I had planned it in my mind, but if it is maybe getting to me to that level, I think that's kind of somewhere where I need to kind of work on that, like, because I do find myself kind of, even during work, I'm like, I'd rather just be processing what I'm thinking about. I've got like so much on my mind. Like, I don't know if you guys ever do this, but it's kind of like when I can't really figure out what's going on in my head, like when I just can't even access it sometimes, I get in the car and I go for a drive. Now, not like on like a super busy street, but just somewhere that's kind of just calm, where I know it's like peaceful, and I turn on some light music in the background and just kind of drive for a little bit. And then I notice the thoughts that are kind of like coming through my mind, and I'm just kind of like, okay, like I've got all this on my mind. And then once I kind of capture the ideas that are going on, I take that and then I'm like, okay, I can work with this, like I can work with this. But yeah, it's not easy. And, I spend a lot of my time and energy doing this kind of thing for other people. It's easier for me to see it from an outside perspective. I mean, for myself, it's easier to look behaviorally at what I do. There's definitely a bit of like self-sabotage in there. But it's just a lot, but it's kind of my process with things. It's kind of how I deal with things, how I am dealing with things at the moment, and that is subject to change as well. It just kind of depends on how actively I'm working on this stuff. I don't want this entire podcast to be just me just kind of like talking about all the problems in my life, but it's kind of hard to do the work by myself. I've had, I think I was doing like a couple months of therapy, like July and August, up until my birthday, mid-August, pretty much. It was a little helpful. It kind of helped me more with settling into kind of, being in an environment where I was at, before, and kind of just talking about, the income situation with the economy changing, and, just kind of dealing with, living with parents at my age, and just being like, a little bit annoyed by some habits that I kind of encounter, that, there's stuff that I grew up with that, I wasn't like necessarily escaping. Like, thankfully, like I never felt like I had to like fully escape my family, even though there were definitely things that I didn't understand, or, was holding grudges about for years, or was just kind of like, I wish this would have gone differently. I wish that these people didn't do this or that still, but I've kind of learned, we all have our BS that, I do too, like I've been kind of shown, a reflection of myself in a lot of ways. And I'm like, I don't really want to be like that, but sometimes I just am. But I'm able to catch myself, I'm able to kind of catch it, but trying to figure out what to do with it, the negative energy aspect of things. I kind of just put it into creativity. That's really all I can really do, is take the negative and create, that's all I can really do. Like, I don't really have any other method to really be dealing with stuff. The basics, eat, sleep, exercise. And I feel like I have a lot of really great social circles, It's just sometimes I really like to hear my own ideas on things before I start hearing other people's ideas, because I notice I'm not too open to other people's ideas when I haven't like fully processed something through on my own. Dude, this traffic is out of control. I hope it's not too loud. Like, I don't know what happened in the last 5 minutes. People just started like driving like crazy. It's been like that since noon, probably because it's a 3-day weekend. But yeah, it's just been like cars just screeching all over the place. But yeah, so I mean, I honestly don't even know what to say past that, you know. You know, I'm noticing more and more, you know, what I'm more driven to do just by paying attention to kind of where I get my energy and what drains my energy and what it is that I'm preferring to kind of engage with. Like even when I have free time, you know, like my mom was like, let's watch that Lord of the Rings. I think she means that new one on like Amazon Prime. I don't know if it's new, but I barely saw it after she mentioned it, so I don't really know. But and I was kind of just like, you know, I have some stuff I want to work on, because like, you know, yesterday I didn't get to do a lot. I was kind of, I think I mentioned, you know, I hang in the living room to get my work done, because outside of my 40-hour work week, you know, I don't really use my work's Wi-Fi hotspot. I use my own like household Wi-Fi, which isn't that great. And well, it's not great from my room or the place where I use for like office space. It's better in the living room. And so when I'm in the living room, the Wi-Fi is great. Also, when I'm in the living room, my mother is in the living room. She hears that I'm in there, and then she comes in, and then she sits down, and then she starts talking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of something, you know. I had 2 things I was trying to do yesterday. One of them, you know, I wanted to work on 1 blog post per podcast. You know, after I logged into all of them and logged into all the podcasts on my laptop, logged into all the, you know, blog sites on my podcast, I was kind of exhausted. You know, my mom's talking to me like the whole time, and I'm like slowed down and all that. Well, actually, I'd say after work, the first thing I do, I usually take about 35 minutes to answer all the texts that I didn't get to during work or during my breaks. As far as like friend texts and things, friends, family. So by that time, if I'm rushing and everything, and I'm doing this literally back to back, it's 4:35 p.m. So 4:35 p.m. or so, I start working, either recording or on blogging or that kind of stuff, you know, for the websites and everything. And so I did that till almost 5 yesterday. Then I was like, you know what, let me just put this down, because I'm not getting very far, and it's frustrating to have somebody just like yammering on and on. So, you know, because it's been hot, you know, she hasn't been like gardening in the afternoons at 4. She's been like in the house with me, talking to me. And so, you know, I'm like, okay, like let me just like watch a couple YouTube videos. So I watched some I think it was Biaheza's new video about side hustles, and I think one of Graham Stephan's reviews of somebody like a software engineer who works in New York. I did that, and then outside of that, I was basically just like, how do I say this? So yeah, outside of that, I was basically just like trying to, I totally lost my train of thought. Yeah, I watched those couple videos on YouTube, and then I went to try to work on a song that, you know, I'm trying to do this collab with a good friend, and so I'm like, okay, let me try to work on this song. And of course she's talking and talking and talking, and I'm like, oh my god. So I'm not even trying to do anything that complex. I'm just trying to, like, I think the day before I chopped the samples. I think that was the day before. And then yesterday I was just gonna, like, upload, sample them, that's all I was gonna do. And then maybe at max, like, put it into, I use a combinator, for the beat, and like there's already like a beat that is available that I was working on before, so I was like, well, this kind of fits. But so I was just kind of gonna edit that, but by the time I uploaded everything, I was just so frustrated with just all that. I just ran out of energy, and so I went and I started laying down, and I was just getting so irritated and frustrated. I was just like, sometimes I just want to tell people, just shut up and leave me alone, like, I can't say that, but it's like, that's kind of the feeling I was having. And so I just went and I just laid down, and I mean, I'm telling you, my folks are nice, they're nice people, but it's just like, I have a very short amount of energy that I really want to be investing in people when I'm in my head. I like to do what's in my head. I don't want to do what's in someone else's head. I'm in everybody else's head 8 hours a day, so I need to be in my own head, at least equally, if not more. So when I have free time, I'm not trying to do what other people need from me. I need to do what I need for myself. And so, I went and I just kind of crashed out, and then waited for dinner, grabbed the plate, scarfed it down real quick, and just like went back to my room. And I was just in my room, just solo by myself, pretty much all evening. And then I started thinking about, I got this message. Me and this friend were having this conversation that I mentioned, I had permission to kind of post about it elsewhere. And I kind of mentioned about, our differences of opinions from, a minority perspective and a non-minority perspective. Not really just ethnic, but like sexuality, gender-wise, like, and ethnic, racial, all sorts of different things. I was kind of like, I kind of see your point in what you're saying, but, it kind of took me a while to kind of get to a point where I was just like able to even think through what this person was saying, because I was already so annoyed that they even like said something that was like, it felt like a little bit dismissive. Like, I mean, when you're a minority and somebody tells you something like, there would have been plenty of other black people that wouldn't have been enslaved because they would have fought back. The ones who were enslaved were the ones who, didn't have that mentality that they had, control over their own destiny or their own lives, things like that. It's just kind of like, what the fuck kind of thing is that to say to somebody? And all that kind of thing. So, it's just kind of like, okay, like, it wasn't just a racial thing, but we were actually talking about like trans people, and I was kind of explaining the experiences that people have, that when you don't meet the criteria that people need you to meet, you get banned or barred from certain parts of society or opportunities, because people look at you and they see something and they're like, no, this is not what we had in mind. If you're coming in to work and you're, born a male and you have facial hair and you have a short haircut and you look like your face is like a male face, but you're comfortable wearing skirts and heels, and you come into work in a skirt and a heel without permission, very likely your boss isn't just going to be like, okay, whatever, and just like keep on working. Now, some environments maybe, but most environments that's not really going to fly. They would call it a disruption, or it's not work appropriate, or whatever the heck they would say. I mean, trans people are almost like forced to kind of talk about their identities, like expose their identities to like a workplace or something like that. Like, people are already going to be judging, is it right, is it wrong, should they do that, should they not do that, being denied access even to like clubs and bars just because your ID doesn't look like your face, not even to mention all the like hate crimes and all kinds of other nonsense that people have to deal with. But it's like, we kind of started there and then went on a roll into talking about ethnicity and race and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just like, this dude is like, he don't even really pay attention. He's he's from his own planet, and that's that. But I kind of got into like, it wasn't really a debate. It took me a while. I was like, I need to kind of think about this more, because I don't want to not listen. But I did block him, until this afternoon. And then I was like, let me not be petty. But, I mean, that was yesterday, that was yesterday, and that leaked into today. I was still kind of processing that stuff out with him today. Just trying to hear him out and trying to be like, feel like I was more heard too. I didn't feel very heard by him. He was just like, no, and I'm like, well, that's just how we're different, like, there's no way you're gonna see things as I do because you're not living the life that I live. And he kind of takes it like, how people say, you manifest things, so if you have that mentality, then you're bringing it on yourself. And it's kind of like, I was like, there's definitely more to it than that, like, even if someone says I'm bringing it on myself, I mean, there's still other people that have, something to do with their decision-making processes. And it's a lot more complex than he, I think, even notices. I mean, he doesn't really talk to a lot of different types of people. He doesn't really get along with a lot of different types of people. He doesn't really have like a social circle too much, unfortunately. He's not very familiar with LGBT culture. He's not very familiar with different racial groups. He hasn't been exposed to the amount of types of trauma and types of impacts on people from poverty and all kinds of stuff. Like, yes, firsthand, he's definitely been through a lot, but just on another level, it's like, there's no way. I don't think there's really any way that this dude's ever really gonna understand that. So, I get why he says what he's saying, but I also don't think he understands that not everybody's life is like that. And like I was mentioning too, like, I don't even feel like I'm a victim. Like, I know how to, create and get through loopholes. Like, it's not like it's that hard. It does take a lot of thought and strategy, but almost everything has a loophole to it, a legal loophole. And sometimes you just gotta jump on it. And, I do believe that. But like I mentioned, before, like, we're all starting from a different place towards the goals that we're trying to reach. We're all starting from a different place. Some of us are right at the starting line. Some of us are behind the starting line. It's like, if you have to even catch up to the starting line just to get to where you're trying to go, it's like, by the time you've caught up, it just takes longer. It's not like it's impossible, but it definitely takes longer. And then, I mean, there's some stuff that I'm thinking that I would want to say, not to him, but just in my mind, but I'm not really gonna say it because it's kind of like a low blow, and it's just not appropriate to really be saying. But I mean, I just think it's a little surprising to hear from somebody who, their life isn't really maybe going the way that they want it to go. So it's kind of like interesting to hear, like I'm not like yesterday. Yes, I was definitely offended yesterday and taking it personal yesterday, for sure I was. But today I'm kind of more like, I just don't understand how somebody can not really see another person's perspective, or what they would call it. It's like, I was kind of asking, like, well, what would you call this? Like, what would you call this? Like, if it's not control, if it's not, someone who believes they're in a power position, trying to have control, what would you call it? He doesn't believe that there's any majority culture related discrimination against others, that kind of holds them down and bars them from getting equal opportunities. That's not really how he believes. And he's not the first person who I've heard say that, actually, but him and some others I've heard say these things do tend to have a lot of homogenous kind of traits to them, as far as their gender, as far as their ethnicity, as far as those types of things. They kind of see it through that lens. And I'm like, well, it's easy for you to see it through that lens. I can see, because that's kind of what you think. But also, if it were that true, it's like, well, how come I'm hearing complaints from these same people that their life isn't going the way that they want it to go, and that all these people are getting in their way? It's kind of like, okay, well, why do you think they're doing that to you? So it's kind of like, I don't know if they can really even see in their own lives that they have the same experiences. It's kind of like their discrimination is more of like a social, like, they're nice guys. They're definitely nice guys. They're not pushovers, but you wouldn't know that they're not pushovers. Like, on the surface, they appear to be like pushovers. And maybe aren't like the most socially popular people. Not that there's anything wrong with them. Like, the more you interact and the more you give it a chance, they're actually great, loyal, good friends. But that's kind of what I've noticed as far as trends, is that they're kind of just like this type of a person on the surface, and they kind of have these other patterns that they experience, but then they wouldn't maybe see what's happening to them. People are discriminating against them because they don't have certain qualities that people gravitate towards, or that people value. If you're sarcastic or obnoxious, or kind of seem like you always kind of have an answer and always trying to like combat people and always argue and debate, people don't like that. People don't want to give you a chance. If you're always talking politics, you're always talking about, religion, and always talking about like all that kind of stuff, people don't want to talk to you. If they don't know you, they're not going to be like, oh yeah, let me call that person back again, because that was really fun to talk about, like segregation and black rights and stuff. That was, it's like, people usually aren't gonna be like feeling heard, and people don't like that. People aren't gonna give that many chances. I give it chances, but I definitely have my limits. I take it at stride, and I'll engage until I no longer want to engage, and then I'm like, okay, like, I'll talk to you next month, kind of thing. Like, I don't feel like obligated to them, but I also feel like, I'm not gonna like write off a friend or dismiss somebody just because we have a lot of differences of opinion and differences of viewing the world. I think it's definitely valuable to have people in life where you don't view the world the same or have the same world experiences. It's just really, really hard. Like, I already know it's a challenge. It's a challenge I'm taking on willingly, but not easily. And it's just definitely a challenge. And so, I don't know. I'm really kind of, just got a lot going on. That's kind of mostly what's been going on that was distracting me from work more than I noticed. And like, I'm usually not going to be like overburdening people with stuff. Like, I'm not, like I said, I like to think things through kind of on my own time and my own space before involving any other person into it. I want to know like what my own mind comes up with, and then I'm willing to hear what other people say. And yeah, like I was mentioning with the therapy options, like I've reached out to my works options for therapy. It's just the website is just impossible to navigate. Like I tried a couple times. It's so annoying that it doesn't work all the time basically. So I'm gonna probably have to call in, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to call anybody. But I might call. And then they have financial advisors, they have people who help with looking for housing and stuff like that. So I'm really gonna I'm basically trying to get engaged with them to kind of make a plan of things and see if they can kind of support me on that. Using my job's resources to get out of the job basically. But I'm not, at first I was like so fed up. I was like, I'm just gonna quit, and it doesn't even matter if I have anything coming in. But I'm like, this money is pretty decent when I don't have a lot of expenses, really. Like, it's decent money. So it wouldn't make any sense to just quit, because it's just money that I'm not really having to spend. So that's kind of a plus as well. Definitely a blessing, definitely a plus. But yeah, all that being said, I'm happy that it's a 3-day weekend. I'm probably posting this either during or after the 3-day weekend, and then I'm definitely going to be working on doing some of the stuff that I need to be doing here, as far as my own goals. But it's just, it's a lot. I'm trying to work on maybe too much at once, but I kind of have to take on kind of what I can while the momentum's there, because the momentum can fade so quick, and then I'm doing nothing for a very lengthy period of time. So, and I've had a lot of nothing going on for like months or weeks at least, up until a certain point. And so I'm glad to kind of have things on a track. It just needs to be a little more of a strategic track and not have like kind of barriers popping up like this. Like, definitely like need to get more organized with stuff, and really just, I work best by creating a process for myself, and I haven't really had one. Like, I did have one, and then I fell off of it, and then I started just doing like random stuff here and there when I felt like it, recording on my 10-minute breaks, recording during lunch break, skipping lunch, and working through lunch, and eating during working, and it's just like starting a bunch of tasks and then just being like, I don't even have energy to like document this now. Like, it's just a lot. Like, I don't want to get too unorganized, because that's where I am right now. I'm really not organized. I have all the pieces and the momentum going now, all the pieces and variables that I need to work with now. I just need to actually put it into some kind of a doable strategy. So that's what I don't have down yet. So before this weekend's over, I'm definitely gonna just plan out my week so that I know which days I'm doing what. Get some gym time this weekend for sure, because it's been too long overdue with COVID and then all this other stuff coming up, car repairs, and had a little cough the other day, and just every little thing, just getting in the way of my workouts. I definitely need to put in at least 4 hours this weekend at the gym. I'll shoot for 6. 4 will be acceptable. But yeah, once I figure out what the strategy looks like, I will get back on here and talk more about it. But this is just how I kind of work through things as far as like goals and trying to kind of readjust things. It just takes a lot. There's a lot I'm trying to do, and it takes a lot. So have a good weekend, have a good week, and thanks for listening.